Okay, so next step, we're gonna start planning the guide and start creating the guide. So I want everybody to go into your panel and get implant list. Remember, if you don't have implant list showing up, you got to hit the panels and get that showing up. So implant list, everybody click this tab. And we're going to walk down this line here. We're going to answer these questions. So drill kit, what drill kit are we using? In my case and in our case, we're using the Blue Sky Bio fully guided surgical kit. So it defaults to the direct. We want to go to fully guided surgical kit. So everyone get that selected. All right, so the next section, this is our implant list. So every implant that we dropped into the scene is going to show up right here. We've dropped one implant in. So this is the implant. This is the model number. This is the ID number. Really what you want to worry about is these 4 checkboxes because these are going to tell you what's showing up in the scene. So the implant is checked. That means it's showing up in the scene because it's checked. The second section is the abutment. We haven't added an abutment. There's no digital abutment. We're not doing that yet today. The third section is the guide tube. So this is where we have to turn the guide tube on. So we need to check this box right here. So everybody should have it look like this. Now that yellow guide tube that we talked about is now showing because this is the important part. And the last section is the padlock. So the padlock is to lock your implant. Once we're done, go ahead and lock that implant because that means you can't accidentally click and move it and screw up the position after you've already set it. So go ahead and lock it because that's helpful. Yep. So you guys all see now we have a guide tube in here. Now let's look. If I look at 3-dimensional, I'll blow my window up so you guys can see that. But look where my guide tube is. It looks great. It's right in the middle between the teeth. And it's visible. It's sticking up above the tissue just based on this case. Now remember, the outer part of the guide tube does not matter. It's the inner part of the guide tube is what matters.
How do you get rid of the tooth in there, Matt?
The tooth?
Yeah. He already put a tooth in.
So you should have a toothless panel that you can click. Up here is a tooth too. If you click that, it'll turn on off all the teeth, right?
Okay.
That'll get rid of the teeth. So everyone should just be seeing a guide tube on their STL. So I'm still in the implant list panel. If we scroll down, because I'm going to have to scroll down on my monitor, this is where the theory comes in of what we talked about. The software guide tube, this is what we have to tweak to what we want it to be. Guide hole diameter, that's how big is this inner hole. And that determines, are we putting a sleeve in there? Are we not putting a sleeve in there? And what is our printer calibrated to? So the default that shows up is 5.34. On everybody's Blue Sky, it's going to show up. The default is 5.34 from here to here. That's thinking that we're putting a metal sleeve in it, because that's the default, and that's thinking that the printer is calibrated to be accurate at 5.34. The height, again, this is where we can change the height of that guide tube. Remember, we can make it taller, shorter for more engagement only if we're going sleeveless. If you're putting a metal sleeve in there, all you get is the 3 millimeters of metal. And then offset. Here's our theory. So 8 millimeters is default because it's thinking we're putting a 0.5 millimeter sleeve with that lip in there to give us that 8.5 magic number. Let's all change it to go sleeveless because I think majority of people would like to learn how to do it sleeveless. Let's do that so that you guys get practice doing that. What I want to do is show you this view here. If I go and change 8 to 8.5, watch the top of the guide tube drop when I hit enter. And ignore these error messages right here. So it just dropped. So I just raised that guide tube up 0.5 because we're not using any metal sleeve. Now, we've also got to shrink the diameter of the guide tube because I don't want to use a metal sleeve in this case. So on my printer, At my house, or at my practice, it's 0.25. And what that did was, that made this 5.25. I know that works for my printer. It comes out. Again, first couple times you do this, remember what we're going to do? We're going to do 3 guides. We're going to do like 5.1, 5.2, 5.3. Pick which one works best for you, and then stick with that number. That way, that's how you calibrate your number. Okay, questions on the guide tube?
So if you were trying to create just a pilot guide, what would you do differently here?
Yeah, good question. So pilot guide, on the very top, there's actually a Blue Sky Bio pilot kit. So you can actually choose the pilot kit. And if I do that, I'm not going to change it really quick, but what it's going to do is it's going to make it narrow. Now, I will say that if you're doing a pilot guide, there's no pilot guide that has a smooth metal cylinder that you can go sleeveless, because a pilot guide is going to take a cutting drill, it's going to run through there. We can't run cutting drills through plastic, otherwise it's going to shave the guide. So you have to buy pilot drill metal sleeves from your manufacturer like Blue Sky, and slide those in, and then you can do pilot guides. So you can customize the diameter and the offset, but you have to have a metal sleeve for pilot drills. That makes sense to everybody? You can't do that without. Okay.
Once you've learned all this, Matt, have you seen any need for a pilot guide?
No.
Personally?
No.
It's just in like, if it was just like a upper lateral or something, and there wasn't enough space for
I see. For the guide tube. Then you might have to.
Yes, actually, no.
That makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Because sometimes, lower incisor, right? Lower incisor, sometimes you don't have 5 millimeters to fit all that. So yes, sometimes you have to go pilot, and you're putting in like a 3.0 implant.
So there's not a different kit. It's just like you're selecting the pilot kit just for the default settings, but you're using like just your pilot drill.
So if you're in the Blue Sky world, they have a recommended pilot drill, which is just a standard drill. It's like 2 millimeters, and then the associated pilot sleeve. So you go on their website, and they've clarified that. Yeah, metal sleeve just for that, and that's all calibrated. And if you chose that in the drill kit, it'll show you the part numbers to make sure that you're ordering the right when you do the report and stuff.
The sleeve with the guide.
How do you do it? How do you secure it? So, yeah, that's a good question. So, in a perfect world, it's friction fit. It's just pressed in there. But then you think about, again, it's that calibration of like, if the resin is too tight, you can't get the metal sleeve in, you got to go and ream it out, which is annoying, right? If you make it too loose, the metal sleeve's kind of floating around in there. So, again, do a couple prints with a little bit bigger, calibrate. Or some guys use a little super glue, like leave it a little loose, little super glue, slide it in, or a little uncured resin, the surgical guide resin, put it in, and then cure the whole thing together. So in a perfect world, you just press it in and it's friction fit. The reason why we're starting with this case is because where I place this implant, this guide tube is above the tissue. It's got plenty of space. This is not a complex one. It's not one you have to change the offset. You can leave the offset to that 8.5. You don't have to worry about it. If you want a 10 millimeter implant, you use a 10 millimeter drill. You just don't have to think about changing and tweaking that. That's why we're starting with this case.
So Matt, you changed your offset. Did you change your diameter to that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
It's just whatever you're calibrated to, you'll change it every time to 5.2 or whatever you decided your machine's
Yep.
best at.
Yep. Because it defaulted to thinking I was using a sleeve. I took away the sleeve, so I had to raise it 0.5, and I had to bring it in to meet my printer. Yep.
Where is the outside diameter?
Outside diameter.
That's the internal, right? The guide hole diameter is the internal diameter.
Yeah. Yeah. The guide tube diameter is the internal diameter. The outer diameter, again, doesn't matter. You can, I believe it's deep in the settings, but I've never changed mine.
Well, it probably needs certain thickness for strength, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yep. And so you'll see when it builds the guide, because which we're going to go to now, we've got our guide tube set, everything's locked, we're ready to go and tell the software to build a guide.